Today we are learning basketball with Brian Geisinger, a new teammate here at SwishTheory. Welcome, Brian. He is a college basketball color analyst, covers the NBA draft at 247 Sports and Basket Under Review, focuses his coverage on the Charlotte Hornets on Sports Channel 8, and host of the Buzzbeat Pod, covering Duke and NC State and all the basketball all around that area. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. It's a fun but busy time of the year, and thanks for having me back on. This will be a good one today. I think I'm always down to talk ACC and Hornets hoops, but just sort of after last week's report in the Athletic, I think there in some other reporting elsewhere, I think the LaMelo probably front of brain for a lot of people covering the NBA right now as well.
Hey, I mean, all of a sudden there's some trade rumors. That's the NBA. That's how it works. I'm definitely excited to dive into some of that because it's fun to just think of all the possibilities with trades and team lineups and stuff. So we'll definitely rip off some fake trade ideas. Thinking we got to cover some actual basketball too, of course. Though Kon Knueppel, lighting up the whole league as a rookie right now. Like going through his box scores as a rookie. Like goodness, the threes, the points, the creation already. We'll hit on that. The other rookies looking really good for Charlotte already. Just kind of as expected, like high floor, ready to play guys, and interesting how they're flowing into their offense off of kind of Knueppel and Kalkbrenner and all that. And then I'm very interested to hear kind of your updates. You're covering Duke on the scene. You were just in live in person seeing Cam Boozer. Was it? I always blank. Was it in front of in the Duke crowd in the Duke arena where you saw him?
Yeah, so I'm credentialed season for the full season at Duke, have been for some time now. So I've gotten to see some pretty amazing prospects, up close, including last season, Knueppel, Cooper Flagg,
There
come
it
on,
is.
Malawatch.
The Cameron Crazies. That's what I'm blanking
Yeah,
on.
it puts you, yeah, the majority of press seating at Cameron is right along the sideline, sort of like the sideline that's in view when you're watching on TV. So you are backdropped by the crazies, although they're not. They're like on the risers right behind you, but they actually used to be closer, and that changed a couple of years ago. So there's a little bit more room down there along press row. But I was sitting right there when Zion's shoe blew up. I was there when Jason Tatum dunked on Kennedy Meeks in 2017. I saw Marvin Bagley there. Wendell Carter Jr. covered him up close, now I guess closer to your neck of the woods in Florida. And now getting to see this year's team, which is pretty prospect heavy too. Maybe not quite as sort of like dense as last season where you had basically what turned into like three. I don't think there's three lottery guys on this team. But whereas last year and you had two top four picks last season with Cooper and Knueppel,
Knipple there.
but certainly with Cam Boozer, his brother Cayden, Isaiah Evans, Dame Sarr. I mean, there's Patrick Ngongba. These are all guys that have first round potential, and I think some of the guys that come off the bench, Malik Brown, who's in his fourth year guy, who I think is draftable and is certainly like a prospect, one of the best defenders in the country. And then another freshman from California, Nicholas Himenia, sort of like hybrid forward, can handle, can pass, played for Team USA at the FIBA U19, won gold medal this past summer playing with guys like Michael Brown, Koa Pete, some of the other guys that are going to be sort of top picks in 2026. Himenia might be a multi-year guy there. We'll see. Sarr came over from FC Barcelona. I'm guessing people listening to this probably know that already, but just Boozer up close, Cam Boozer specifically. I think I've been there for all but one game, including the preseason win over Central Florida back in October. I missed the opener a few weeks ago, but for the most part, I've been in every other game. And Boozer's an interesting guy because he does have these sort of physical. He profiles similarly physically with Ben Caro when he was there for his freshman year.
Right.
In that 6'9" range, 250 pounds, but mobile, right? Like super coordinated and mobile. The footwork is really, really outstanding. the shooting touch. He's a fun guy to sort of like watch warm up because he's got a really pretty stroke. He shoots it from every level of the floor. And I've not seen someone there yet covering Duke for, basically 10 years that was the kind of like outlet hit ahead passer that he was. Duke has had some good hit ahead guys in that time span, but they were like the Jones
He's special
brothers.
at that. He's special. I mean, like he's like Kevin Love special at that.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna be all time great outlet passer. That's one of his bankable traits right out of the gates.
Multiple levels up the floor, right? Like some guys hit ahead and it's like they're just playing fast, and the point guard's picking it up. Around the 3-point arc
a little more.
Yeah.
Than Kevin Love. He can bring it up himself, to your point, at any of those levels and hit it.
He can grab and go. I mean, his brother Cayden can do that too. Another like amazing open floor passer, and a guy that can pass, ambidextrous passer, can pass it with both hands. Great touch, great feel as a passer. Boozer I was at the game yesterday against Howard, and he didn't register a field goal until probably a couple of minutes left in the game, but drew 6 fouls, had a handful of assists, no turnovers, like very much in like the like floor general, Trey Tyus Jones style, but with more, I would say like sort of like more daring play in the open court. And Boozer, this has been said about him elsewhere, but it feels true. And I even sort of picked up on it yesterday, like, he can and Howard's not a particularly like strong team, but he just methodically, you'll look up and he's already got 22 and 9 or whatever on efficient. And he's been incredibly efficient, mostly just because he's drawn a lot of fouls this season. He has avoided turnovers for the most part. He's hovering for a guy with 30% usage to have a sub 7% turnover rate and a 27% assist rate is pretty crazy. Like, I get a lot of the knocks in it, and he's a guy that I've seen in some of his struggles with the interior finishing, and that's probably something we can maybe delve into even a little bit more. I mean, against both, I think it was the game against Niagara on Friday. I mean, he had several shots blocked, but that's a team that's, from the MAAC, it's basically a team that's like outside the top 340 nationally. And for Cam to have multiple shots blocked and to sort of like struggle at some moments finishing around the hoop, like it is to an extent, like it's a bit of a red flag. I mean, it's worth remembering, like he's not even 19 years old yet. He's shooting 37% from deep, and the like processing and decision-making have been excellent. Duke runs a lot of its offense in the half court through its front court guys. And that was something that I wrote about a lot this offseason. Just knowing that they had kind of some question marks at the point guard spot. They bring back a veteran in Caleb Foster, and he's like a nice player, but he's probably like, profiles as like a, mid-tier ACC starter, rotation guy. Good player though, and he's been solid so far this year. And then Cayden Boozer, who is a talent, but isn't like really like a threat to like, the shot is a bit of a question mark, and he's sort of like a shaky-ish shooter. And Duke has a bunch of tall passers on this roster with Boozer, with Patrick Ngongba, who's again projected 2025 first or 2026 first round guy, and Malik Brown and Nicholas Menia. These are guys that can really handle and pass. And Duke's base offense is this sort of like modified 5-out that you and I talked about last year, because the Hornets and the Duke were sort of like launching it at the same time, which was Duke plays a lot of its possessions with the 5. In this case, that's Patrick Ngongba or Malik Brown, or when they play small, Cayden Boozer. But those guys spaced to the left wing when they go 5-out, not sort of in the middle of the court handling the ball. And they put their like a big front court playmaker in that middle spot. So last year that was Cooper Flagg with Kaman Malawatcher, Malik Brown spaced to the wing. This year it's Cam Boozer. And they can do a lot of different stuff, flow into different actions, flow into 4 or 5 pick and roll out of that. They can get to flare screen action out of that. They can get to wide action out of that. Step up screens. There's all different kinds of things they can get to. That's even before you sort of get into some of the deeper layers of their off ball actions and how they use that sort of the 5 space to the wing to set off ball flare screens, off ball down screens, and how that's a real weapon for someone like Isaiah Evans, who's, one of the best movement shooting prospects, heading into the 2026 draft cycle. But they let Boozer, they run a lot of stuff through Cam. They'll invert the offense. They'll play through him in the high post. And as I've written about in a few places too, they will also do some stuff with Cam Boozer where they're going to screen him to the block, and they'll throw it to him down there. They'll try to see if the double team's going to come. If the double team comes, they want, Cam to be a passer and kick out shooters, pick out the opposite, big man in the dunker spot, pick out a guy on the, a 45 cut, coming, with the 5 space to the wing. They're going to crash down on that 45-degree angle, and Boozer can look for them there. And if he gets single coverage, let him go to work. And if he gets a switch somehow, they're going to look to go high-low. And they've actually been kind of hammering that high-low action this season with Ngongba as the passer and Cam as the sealer, or they can flip it and let Cam pass while Ngongba seals in the paint. But it's an interesting 5-out offense in terms of like where they put the 5 and what the roles are for that 5 space to the wing. So the whole point of this last season was to open up the floor for Cooper and to create off-ball opportunities for Kon Knueppel, Isaiah Evans, Tyrese Proctor. And this season, I think it's different in some ways because Cam and Cooper are not identical. So Cam's sort of he's not initiating as many pick and rolls, but you're also looking for him as a post-up target more. But just trying to find opportunities to space the floor around those guys and then put them in spots where they can try to get 2 defenders on the ball and then turn into passers. So I've been impressed with Cam so far. I know the finishing has been a bit of an issue, but on the interior, but overall, I think he's been pretty outstanding so far this season. And the numbers at the moment are tough to argue about, are tough to argue with. So I don't know. You saw Cam. I watched some of Cam, his tape when he was at Columbus High, but you saw him some last season. So I don't know. What were your thoughts about him? I guess I would sort of even target it specifically to like interior finishing and athleticism. Like, where were you with him, 6 months ago, 12 months ago?
Yeah, that was something I thought was interesting too. Was I kind of caught Boozer and Flagg and some of these other names, Cayden as well. They played each other in high school matchup, and now you've seen them up close in person as well at Duke. So we get a little bit different of a kind of a moment in their development cycle. And it's funny in my head how like you think of like, oh, I was back in high school and then college was this other thing and then the pros, and it's like this was like 6 months apart and they were only there for a few months, and it's just it happens very fast, even though it's only 3 or 4 years of development. So the whole cycle is fast in general. But there's a lot of great things you hit on there. Starting with Boozer, I definitely want to highlight the point forward of his game. Like that, I think is what stood out most. The outlet passing that you hit on already, like that stood out right away. Was that he looked like a natural offensive engine, as something of a downhill force. Like he was getting to the rack with ease. I don't remember any problems with him finishing in that one. I remember him finishing strong and getting and ones, getting to the line. I don't have the box score in front of me and having a little problem pulling up my scouting report on that one in terms of the stats. But it was like 3 years ago, so the internet changes here. But I came away more impressed by Boozer as an offensive engine prospect than I was by Flagg in that sense. But Flagg was just so overall, all around impactful as a defender, as forcing turnovers, a downhill playmaker, just doing all the little things right along with that shooting potential, where you can kind of see obviously why Flagg was also one of the most versatile prospects ever at the time. So like it was clearly a clash of talent. It wasn't like a shootout. They didn't have the best nights, probably because of maybe the hype or maybe guarding each other, just going against instead of like, these are high school super teams. So like normally they're beating up other high schools or they're playing other high school super teams. So it's good to see him actually get some pressure. Came away really impressed by Cayden Boozer too. That's a guy. I'm a little surprised how low he's kind of been in the draft talks. That's what I was going to ask you in terms of the draft profile to back it up a little bit. Jeremy Woo dropped his big board of the 2026 NBA draft on ESPN, and he has Cam Boozer third. Boozer's pretty clearly been in that top 3 talks just about the whole time. I've had him like 1 for a while until Darren Peterson just kind of blown me away recently, so I'm kind of leaning him now. But it's fun either way. They're also talented. But in terms of Duke, the surprise to me was Cayden Boozer not even in the top 30 on this ranking, but Dame's Sarr number 10 on this ranking. So he's got him in the lottery. And then Isaiah Evans right outside at number 20, like looking in, and 2 other first, or not first, but like kind of late, a little bit later. Ngongba at 27, Kaminia at 34. So, like you said, a lot of Duke talent. Any rankings there jump out to you? I think if Isaiah Evans kind of lives up to the shooting, you got something there. Thoughts on Sarr being that high? And, Cayden Boozer, I think I had him like 15th, 20th in my head when I was just kind of doing a pencil ranking. So like maybe I just need to see more players and see who gets bumped because he wasn't even ranked.
That is really a surprise. I'm not going to lie.
Now it might have something to do with like maybe he waits a year and that's why he didn't get on the ranking. But like I would have thought he was much higher.
I would be surprised also that Jimenez would be in there in Boozer wouldn't. Those are the 2 like potential one and dones on the roster that might be back for a second year in Durham. I think there's like sort of hope or chatter or whatever with both of those guys. But no, I think Boozer just like the positional size, 6'4", 200 pounds at the point guard spot with that vision and that processing, the toughness, the competitiveness. Dude is obviously he's won at every level. Maybe it doesn't hurt getting to play next to Cam. And their high school team was loaded at Columbus. Some really amazing players on that roster.
What's crazy is you list off all of Cayden's accomplishments. You just kind of assume they're Cameron's because it's an insane resume, but it's because they did it all together. Like you said, like they won Peach Jam 3 times in a row. They're dominating Team USA basketball, dominating at high school with the Richardson bros on their bench as well. Jason Richardson's both of his sons were there. Jace Rich, now in Orlando. Jackson shooting up the recruitment charts with his athleticism. So they're playing with talent, but to your point, he reminded me a little of Andre Miller, but kind of more modern. Like he had that 3-point shot. He was just that traditional, strong, bulky point guard that knows exactly how to set up his teammates. Somewhere between like a connector, but could still run the point. Like could still run some offense. Like he might not be like the on-ball scoring point guard we're necessarily used to, but it's more so like I don't want to just compare every connector to Lonzo, but in that archetype of like strong defender, can hit the 3, can make the right decision with the ball, and like clearly an NBA player with that size and skill. I think now as a guard it can be a lot tougher, but like clearly it can be a prospect is what I should say that. I would have had, like I said, like around lottery, like late first at the moment.
To me, he's much closer to like a first round top 20 prospect than he is, off the board completely. That is a bit of a surprise. He's drawn fouls at a good clip this season, drawn 2.3 shooting fouls per 40 minutes. His brother Cam, 4.7 shooting fouls drawn per 40 minutes, which is in the 97th percentile nationally. So both those guys have been, making their way to the free throw line. I think the Lonzo comp is definitely like a fun one for Cayden, size wise, the hit ahead passes, the quick decision making, the sort of like snappy decision making. Boozer is also he has such like a classic, like, almost pure point guard belief in terms of like, it's his job to set everyone else up. He really is just trying to get in there and like make the right decisions, make them quickly, pop the ball around, get guys good looks. But because he has size and because he plays with such pace, and because Duke's spacing is good, etc. But just like he can turn the corner, he can get into the paint, he can make multi-layered reads from those spots. I think for people scouting the draft, it's like even if Cayden isn't your cup of tea necessarily, you do have to acknowledge like these strengths he has, like the size and the passing vision and the decision making are like undeniably pretty good. And like I said earlier, he live ball passing, open floor passing, passing in tight windows, passing with either hand. He's got like he clearly is just like very skilled as a passer. And from off access through contact, like just can sort of kind of make all of the passes, to borrow a football type of cliche. I think Dame Sarr at 10 is interesting, and I like Sarr a lot. I think he's had like a good start to the season. His defense has really, really popped. I've written about it. I thought in the Niagara game, he was just sort of like everywhere as a team defender. And he's had a nice season so far defending the ball, being at the point of attack, really pressuring the ball when Duke picks up full court. But against Niagara, he really showed off like just how many boxes he can check as a team defender. And he can be in the gap, peel switch, close out, chase dudes off of screens, blow up handoffs. He's skinny, but not like real skinny. Isaiah Evans is really, really skinny. Sarr's got a frame that he can clearly like add muscle to. Quick hands, really like good feel, I think, as like an off-ball defender, and probably, being a piece of the Barcelona Development Academy and then coming into Duke, like those are two good places, they're good spots to develop. And Duke is really right now, and I'm not surprised that they're going this route, because having seen him play with the Italian like U18 team, I think this was the summer of 2014, and then with FC Barcelona at spots last season, and then the Hoop Summit out in Oregon this past April. Like Sarr obviously can do a lot of different stuff, but he is not super strong with the ball. Like you can knock him off. He doesn't really play through the bump, play through contact that well. He's not going to finish in a crowd. He can be like an explosive finisher in transition or on a cut. I kind of actually like him quite a bit as like a cutter, but he's not the kind of guy that can like power up through traffic and reliably finish. He did have a nice, in the Kansas game, I should say, he did have a nice like catch and go finish. Kansas double teamed Cam Boozer. He kicked it out and swing, and Sarr drove from the wing and got an and one layup. That was probably his best like drive of the season. He shot the ball really well from the corners so far this season, and Duke is really using him in that capacity. Like I asked after the game on last Friday night, I asked Duke's coach, John Scheyer, I asked him about Sarr after the game, because Dame had played so well defensively. So I wanted to sort of get some of his thoughts on Sarr's defense. And, he went into a bit about how special Dame's defense is and how they're just telling him that the offense is going to come, that he just needs to focus on defense. The offense is going to be there. And they're right. It's like him filling the corners, spotting up, playing off of the Cam Boozer double teams, playing off the Pat Ngongba double teams, working as a spot up guy, as a connector, and like a gunner in transition for them is, I mean, it's not exactly like the Sion James role from a season ago, but it's not like totally dissimilar. There's some overlap there in terms of like where he's going to be located. Sion also was their like nominal point guard and sort of was like an offensive caretaker for them last season. So Cayden Boozer has some of that this year too. But I think Sarr's been impressive. 10 does seem like a little high is the preamble I would say for a guy.
Do you believe in the 3-point shot? It seems like the profile, if I had to guess why he would be that high, it's like 6'8" wing, incredible defender you just described, and he's taking 60% of his shots from deep on 40% 3-point volume.
And he shot really, really well from the corners, which I know is sort of like less of a thing in college basketball compared to, say, the NBA. But Sarr this season is
special skill. PJ Tucker.
But he shot 69% on corner threes so far this season. Obviously low volume. So that to me, that'll probably come down a little bit. I don't envision him to be a guy that like is shooting like low 40s, but maybe mid to high 30s. That's good. I think his
And
shot,
only 50% on free throw, so that would be a negative on the touch. So that's kind of why I asked.
And that was a concern with him at Barcelona too, albeit like on like a lower number of attempts. So it was like, it didn't feel like a representative sample. But what I would also say about I lost my train of thought here about Sarr. Yeah, no, but the again, I think the defense has the chance to be special. He's super active and competitive on that side of the floor. I see the pathway for him being a guy that can like give you some spot up and some creation because he's got these long strides. SGA is his favorite player. So I think he sort of fashions himself as the guy that can give you the sort of like, offbeat dribble drive game and get into, but really that's not, I don't think that he's quite there yet when it comes to his shot. And here's what I wanted to bring up. I do think whether this was Duke, whether this was like Sarr's trainer or his team around him, I think he's cleaned up his shooting base pretty considerably. If you watched him at Barcelona or with Greece, he had a strong tendency to like on catch and shoots do the like bend both knees in, and in sort of this year I think I noticed it in August at one of their practice scrimmages, but just like Sarr's really got his legs better positioned. Like there's less like inward knee bend with him, which I think speaks to a stronger shooting base and a guy that should have, a more bankable catch and shoot jumper and with more pop and more range too. So early returns on that are positive, but like let's check in on that like in a month too. You know what I mean? Because I'm a little worried at where it's going to stabilize, but his length, his pedigree, his athleticism, his defensive upside, and the fact that he is shooting the ball at a good clip now. I certainly understand the appeal. It's just, I'd like to see him sort of like where he ends up if he's able to do a little bit more with the ball eventually, but
all right.
We're not quite there yet.
All right. So with Cam Boozer here, some of the I think the the nitpickers, the draft evaluators are gonna harp on the negatives, like the finishing touch maybe to start the year, but he's also like breaking other stats like BPM. He's got 21 BPM overall, 39 PER, 65% true shooting, getting to the line, half of his 0.52 free throw rate, a 26% assist percentage to 5.8 turnover percentage. In a general sense, you've seen a couple of these top number one guys, top level prospects, Sion, Paolo, Flagg come to mind. You don't necessarily have to rank them, but where does he kind of stand in those players? Like, is he on that tier of player to you so far at this point in his development? Like very clearly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Zion was sort of in his own category.
It was special. Man.
There was
Duke Zion.
There was nothing like that, and I'm sure we'll see something like it again. It might be a while, like it was athletically, physically, and obviously like he had great skill too. Yeah. That was
another planet.
It was insane. It was insane.
The 3-point block lives rent free in my head from the paint to the corner three.
The DeAndre Hunter too. It wasn't like some 5'10" walk on, like a
6'10" wing from Virginia,
an NBA small forward, in the corner. And that was actually one of the road games I was in Charlottesville for that game against UVA that season. But if I had to, I could honestly, I was there for Tatum. Tatum was another sort of like special prospect as well. Those were the guys that in the years I've covered, been like credentialed full time, that I've covered and have been sort of like, you could just tell those guys, I was blown away by them. And so as far as like putting them in tiers, like, yeah, I think Boozer's is in that group because of the shooting, the skill, the footwork, the processing. And some of that, honestly, like I don't want to comp him to Paolo, though I see some of the parallels because they're Duke guys, similar builds. They both map the floor really, really well. They've got great skill, great footwork. they just do their jobs in like very different fashion. You know what I mean? They really, really do. Although, I mean, if Paolo was at Duke and played in John Scheyer's system, I think like they would do a lot of the same things too that they're doing with Cam. I digress.
Yeah, I think,
but I think he's like, I think he's in that
comps
tier
anyway. Yeah. Is the Paolo, the point Blake Griffin in Detroit, like this 6'9", 6'10", tough shot making. Like that was probably the other thing that stood out the most is downhill tank, the transition passing, but he was also hitting tough shots. Like it might not be like I just can't remember off the top of my head the finishing at the rim in that game, but the tough shot making definitely. Like it was mid range, it was pull ups. So is there any special skill that like that kind of stood out? Like maybe it's just the sum of the parts at that size, but any certain skills that we didn't hit on that are on that elite prospect tier like all the other guys?
I guess we sort of touched on it a little bit, but would just be like the 3-point shooting range. That does feel, I mean, with all of those other sort of guys that we were just talking about, Tatum, Zion, Cooper obviously shot it well last season, but I think he came into Duke in sort of probably the first month of the season. He had some struggles shooting the ball. Paolo, we have to have daily debates over whether he takes too many mid-range shots or whatever now, but
welcome to the Magic discourse.
I as someone who really likes Paolo and covered him in college and am a fan and pulling for him, I like sort of like from afar am frustrated by those conversations, and the boozer ones are like becoming a proxy of that too. Like there are a lot of people that watched him play 30 minutes against Texas or Kansas that like, I'm talking about like people that cover the NBA that have already been chiming in being like, yeah, I just don't see it with this guy. And it's like, that's awesome. Thanks. Thank you for that. It's really appreciate your analysis on this person that you checked in for an hour of on a Tuesday night or whatever.
Just give it up so quickly.
But I think Cam, and I mean, maybe it's not necessarily like the sort of like off dribble shooting from range, but just like what you can do with the guy who has that kind of like movement shooting capabilities. And Duke's used him as, coming off down screens. I mean, some of the stuff that they ran, these like wide pin down actions that they ran for Knueppel or Proctor last season. I mean, they can use Cam in that. He can set the flare screen and then pop out. And then if you're really thinking about sort of like what that looks like at the next level, like a guy who has that kind of shooting range with the decision-making and the floor vision, like what that does to space and stretch a defense. And he can obviously, when he's going to hit those shots, that's going to force other rotations. And then he can just be in decision-making mode as a passer and just picking out cutters and weak side shooters, that kind of stuff too. So right now he's number 2 for me on my board behind Peterson, with AJ.
Same,
3,
I think.
Caleb Wilson 4. I mean, I like all of those guys a lot. Like they're all awesome. So we'll see how things progress throughout the season, but I know there's been some gripes so far, and I understand that I truly, as someone who's been on hand for several of these games, most of them so far this year, the finishing around the basket, it's looked tough in part because he's just sort of like caught between not being able to like finish play over the top and also not like out muscle guys. So let's just see how he adjusts. Like let's see if this is something that improves throughout the season. If he's able to, because he's like one small tweak away from, being like a really good interior finisher, despite some of the physical or athletic limitations. And he's already statistically the best player through the first month of the season in college hoops. So like, everyone should probably just chill out a little bit.
Right. I think that's a great point. Everybody chill. And just the as you said, the instant reaction analysis of everything could just, be a little much in the basketball world. There's a little bit too much of a short form take after one game, and just that I think not enough like on the evaluation side. We just have to realize there is a long development path here, and one game does not speak for a player's entire game, and it's all about reviewing the sample size as a whole. And like, these guys are really young and the development happens really fast. And what makes it impressive is when these guys develop even faster than expected. So when he's already one of the best players in the world and has a few weaknesses, and if he works on them throughout the year and shows improvement, we saw Flagg get better as a shooter throughout the year, knowing he has shown he can shoot constantly, it's within his game, and sometimes things just don't show up right away in the stats. I mean, it has to happen over a long period of time. We're talking about 7 games, but to that point, he's hitting 4 threes a game on 37% from three. He's hitting 79% at the free throw line on 7 free throws. Paolo and LeBron are at around like 74%, 75%. So that's more efficient for that volume of a kind of guy getting to the line of that size. And 21 points, 10 boards, 4 assists to 1 turnover. What is that? 3 steals and blocks combined per game. So, filling up the box score. Before we shift to the Hornets, was there any of the newsletter Substack articles from your Split the Action newsletter you wanted to kind of walk through, maybe run through some one of your favorite Duke actions for us and highlight any players we haven't talked about yet?
Or why not? Let's go to the most recent one I published, which is the riding
Zipper
the L
action.
train. Yeah, the zip. This is so this set. And let's go to I'm trying to think which one I want to pick out specifically, but maybe go, if you don't mind, scrolling down to the sort of the first subhead that says hop on the L train. Again, this was a potentially lame naming convention thing that I did because the Duke was.
You got to go for the pun in the title. If there's not a good basketball pun in there, no one's gonna click.
Duke was playing in New York, and so and Duke runs this zipper series that I've often just referred to as their L series, because when Duke signals it in, they say the letter L and they'll flash the letter L with their hands. And they started running it last season as like a package, mostly around like Knueppel, and he'd like start in the corner, and then he would sprint up the middle of the lane off staggered down screens from the 4 and the 5. So Flagg and Malawach, or Flagg and Ngongba, or Flagg and Malik Brown. And then he'd catch the ball at the top of the key. And then usually Duke would flow from that into like a step up screen with the 5, like Malawach. But they could run different stuff out of it. They could flow into Spain pick and roll off that. They could flow into a post up for Cooper Flagg, because like once he was done screening for Knueppel, he could just like seal on that low box area. Or they could flow into 5 out from that. Like once Knueppel would clear to the top of the key, he could then fade out to the opposite wing. Flagg could pop out to the strong side corner, and then the 5 could lift to the middle of the floor, and they could just sort of like flow out of that and get into an action off of those things. And Duke is running that a lot. Interestingly, the Hornets have been running this season as well for Knueppel. They borrowed it, but this year you're seeing a lot of these same concepts, but instead of it being Knueppel obviously running off the staggered screens up that zipper action, it's either Cayden Boozer, or it's Isaiah Evans, or it's Dame Sarr. And then Cam Boozer is in the same spot as Cooper Flagg. So they're using this to generate a lot of like post touches for Cam, because it's got decent spacing around it. You're going to have a shooter in the weak side corner. You're going to have the 5 at the top of the key, and the 5's can either space or cut down. So if a double team comes, you've got a couple of good places to look for a kick out pass or a cutter. Or if it's single coverage, you can just try to go to work here. So I'm not sure if you have the ability to. I'm trying to see if the quality of this is a little on my screen is like a little blurry, so I can't totally tell like which play you're running here. But
sure, I'm running through. The second one here is Duke versus Kansas.
Yeah,
bringing it up.
Okay.
You were just describing what was happening on the last one perfectly. So I'm on the second clip in the article now.
Okay,
but
cool.
It should look a little cleaner in post, but we'll let the fans decide it.
Okay, cool. So the one that I'm looking at is it's like 4:30 in the first half against Kansas. The score is 15-10.
Okay. Do you see the page scrolling right now?
Yeah, I do. But
Okay.
I'm trying to like look up. It's not super like it's pretty blurry, so I'm just trying to use my screen to match it up.
I
So
see.
this is the one where the clip I'm trying to pull
Oh, I
up.
got you. 15 to
It's
10, 14 in the first.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. So it's the first in bed underneath the second subhead.
There we go. We got it going.
But yeah, so this is a play that I think is worth checking out. It's gonna start with Caleb Foster's bringing the ball up the court, and Caden Boozer is going to start in the left corner. Duke has sort of the spots sort of mixed around a little bit. They've got Malik Brown, the 5, spaced to the right wing. They've got Hymenia as like the de facto small forward. He's going to be the one setting the initial screen, off-ball screen for Caden Boozer. And then you've got Cam Boozer trailing the play in the middle of the floor, and he's going to set the second down screen for Caden Boozer coming off that. So we can roll it and then pause it once Cayden has caught the ball atop the key.
Got it.
So yeah, once he has it there, and again, this was a big action for Kon Knueppel last season. And then real simple, what's going to happen next is Hymenia is going to sort of like cut to the right corner, and you're going to get an exit screen from Malik Brown, the 5. And that's just really dummy action to tie up the back line, help defense. And you're going to get Caleb Foster, the 1. He's going to fill to the left corner. And then you're going to get a step up ball screen with between the Boozer brothers. So Cam sets this for Cayden, and Kansas is putting 2 on the ball. So if you want to roll it, Cayden's going to hit Cam on the short roll. And then because the right corner defenders are tied up with the exit screen action, I believe it's Melvin Council. He comes all the way off Caleb Foster in the left corner to try to like basically to get right into Boozer's face. And here's where you can see some of the quick processing of Cam Boozer. I mean, he's got a wide open teammate, so it's not the most difficult pass in the world, and he's taller than the player that's defending him. But like he basically goes right, he's catching the ball on a spin, and boom, immediately pass perfect right in the shooting pocket, and it's a wide open catch and shoot 3. Foster misses it, but the process is obviously very good there, and you can just see some of the usage of Cam Boozer as a guy who can do a bunch of different stuff as a screener, because he can roll, he can short roll, he can pop, and then he's a playmaker off of those actions too.
Right. And, for what it's worth, I just saw Paolo run that exact play, make the exact pass to Desmond Bain like last week, like in the exact same spot on the floor. So they didn't run like the screens, I don't think, to get it to set up that pick and roll, but like literally the same pass and just as quickly to that point, to your point about processing, he could take a step in and go for the elbow midi, but he knows he's got the wide open corner shooter. It's a quick read, especially if he turns. What I imagine is that it's quick decision making, quick read and react. Like you already know there's 2 on the ball behind you, so as soon as you turn, you see where the defenders are, and if they're over helping on one side, it's a quick pass. If you're wide open, it's a quick shot or a drive. And I think that creating advantages in situations where the decision making is that read and react quick is where you maximize some of this stuff, because as you said, Cam Boozer's shooting is what kind of unlocks some of that offensive versatility for all the different roles that you described, where you can basically run any play and any inverted action of that play through Cam because of all the different possibilities. Like he threatens the pick and roll, strong drive, the lob threat, the short roll playmaking, the short roll elbow midi, and the pick and pop all at once. And like when you have this like army knife type of a guy, it's really hard to guard, and it's just kind of like, how do you unlock all of those skills in the best way? And when he's your best player, you can kind of just do it based on matchups. You can kind of feel it through where he's hot any given night. But it just makes him such a deadly offensive weapon where you could run an entire offense through him if he can kind of like fine tune that decision making and threaten himself as a scorer, himself as a shooter, himself as a play finisher, and then also as a creator for everybody else. And he's drawing fouls, and he's a shooting threat on or off the ball. Do you have you liked what you've seen on the ball pull up shooting as much as off the ball motion movement screening shooting for Cam Boozer?
I think the sort of like off the catch stuff has been a little bit just through the first, couple of weeks of the season. I don't actually have the
Just
splits
what
in front of me. Just I think so. I think the catch and shoot stuff has been a little bit more impressive, or sort of like he's gotten some. They've run some 4-5 pick and roll, and they've run some inverted action with him, but they could push those buttons even more. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious to see where that goes. And obviously, when they run that 4-5 pick and roll with he and Ngongba or he and Malik Brown, teams are going to switch that a lot this season, would be my guess. And so Cam's going to have to look to see if he can, get to that rhythm pull up game. That was a big shot for Paolo when he was at Duke. They would run 4-5 pick and roll with he and Mark Williams. But I think with Cam, you could run it from even further out, right? Because he, in theory, should be able to, step into pull up threes and stuff in a way that, at least at the college level, Paolo wasn't totally comfortable with doing. So it's a big piece for him. I think the off the catch shooting has been a little bit better, but I see there being, real potential because he's a shooter with good range and good footwork. And I just think he can like dictate matchups in a way to get to his spots and get clean looks. So I feel pretty good about both. He's just not like super twitchy as like a space creator, you know what I mean? Which is, I think that's fine too. So for me,
because of his size and strength, he kind of has a little bit of kind of the shot release advantage already. Maybe needs a little less space, but that also could mean if you get tight ball pressure defense underneath him and he can't self-create, it could be a little tougher to kind of create those shots if you're pressuring the ball is what that could mean to me. Did you have any more plays you wanted to finish here before we
let's do one more and then talk Hornets. This is the last play.
Duke Arizona?
It's it's with about 1:47 left. The score is 64-73. Duke is bringing the ball up, going the other direction.
We got it here.
So, and I'll just start going off the cuff here again. So same setup where you're going to get this like zipper action, and it's going to be Cayden Boozer. It's mostly the same players too. You're going to get Caleb Foster initiating.
Hey, before you go on, just to clear it up, a zipper setup is the double stagger screen in the paint where they run from the corner through the paint to the top of the key.
That is one version of a zipper, but like zipper could be just like you zipped up. To me, a zipper is running up the middle of the lane to like receive a pass atop the key.
There it is.
That's a zipper cut. Duke just happens to run this one set where there's like two down screens and they flow out of it.
Okay.
But the zipper can come in different can come off of different screens. But it can be single double, but I just think of it as you coming up through the lane, especially, or up the sides of the lane to catch a pass outside of the arc.
There we go. We learned a little basketball today.
Exactly.
Now go on for us.
So yeah, same setup here, but you've got Isaiah Evans in for Homenia, and you've got Patrick Ngongba in at the 5 for Malik Brown, but it's a very similar concept. Cayden Boozer is going to zip up, and then Foster's going to pass it over, and let's pause it when he gets to the top of the key, and Cayden Boozer catches the initiation pass from Caleb Foster. You can pause it right there. And now it's basically the same setup, right? Because Caleb Foster is going to, again, pass off to Cayden Boozer. He's going to space to the left corner. Cam Boozer is going to flip his hips, and he's going to come up and set a little step-up ball screen for Cayden Boozer. And while that's happening, instead of it being Homenia, who's a pretty good shooter, you've got Isaiah Evans, who's one of the best shooters in the country. He's going to run the baseline off of that exit screen action, which is going to tie up both Kansas help defenders on the back line. And you've got Flory Badunga, who's a good center prospect for Kansas, but he comes up to the level of the screen that Cam sets on Cayden. But you'll see Cam Boozer, he sort of does like a little mini version of the hot stove screen. Like he's sort of like underneath Badunga, and he sort of like uses those two hands. He spins off and gets inside leverage. And with the exit screen tying up the backline defenders, Cam's able to get a step behind Kansas's 5 and then gets to the rim, after a dribble for a layup. And basically this was the play that sealed the game too. So a good look at Cayden and Cam Boozer together in pick and roll action. A good look at the importance of the exit screen as dummy action. Isaiah Evans, his gravity as a movement shooter, and just sort of some of the different stuff you can do off of this set. And with Cam Boozer as a screener, because he's the chessboard is sort of like wide open for him once he sets a pick.
Yeah, great note on Flory Badunga. Like I thought he was second round worthy last year.
Yeah.
He could be,
he played really well against Duke. He dealt with some foul trouble, but he played well in this game. And again, if any of this kind of writing is interesting, this is from my Substack page. It's Split the Action, and I published this story last week, sort of going into some of the things Duke did well against Kansas in the last week's matchup in New York City.
There it is. Ton of good nuggets to learn from, and subscribe to the newsletter. It hits your email feels like multiple times a week. I'm getting a new update on Duke or NC State or Charlotte, and this is one other thing with Badunga. I think was kind of maybe part of the game plan here to draw the rim protector as far away from the rim as possible and kind of get him on the move, because maybe he's more of that instinctual near the paint rim protector chasing block shots maybe a little more than he is the versatile wing defender at this point.
In Kansas's scheme is Bill Self has his 5s come up to the level. So part of that, I don't know if that's even the best usage for
him specifically.
Kind of think he sort of profiles as more of a drop guy, have him in his wingspan in the paint, but they put 2 on the ball. And Duke had some stuff ready to deal with that. Yeah,
and just off the top of my head, Cayden Boozer's a pass first guy, so 2 on the ball, he's gonna make a good read, and you're finding Cam Boozer short roll with the step advantage already past the shot blocker, wide open paint to roll. You mentioned the exit screen here, and just to clarify, screens get so many names. Could you also call this like a flare screen or a back screen, or is it?
You could call it I would call it maybe like a pin in screen too.
Okay,
it's sort of like the other name I would consider with it. I've also heard people call it a smack screen too.
All right, there we go.
It's just
that's always why I asked. There's always a few names for
terminology. There's always new basketball jargon, but I refer to it as exit. But I've heard smack, and I think I've heard by the book, I think it's by definition it's a pin in screen, but it's sort of gotten the exit nickname, the smack nickname, in terms of especially when it's used to get these
pin
sort
in
of corner shooters.
Too hard to say, Smack
exactly.
just sounds better. Pin in, you trip over yourself trying to say it on the announcer, I guess. Yep. So there it is. Some super interesting. I always love checking in because all these top prospects, we always get at least one at Duke, and they seem to be in the front court. Now they're running through Scheyer, as you've noted in your Substack, they run similar sets each year. I don't know if the casual fan checks into Duke games and realizes they're running similar sets for a Filipowski one year as Flagg the next and Boozer the next, and they can kind of the coach and the scheme and the system can learn things from that, doing it over and over, kind of learn how to develop a system that way where you're not kind of inventing everything from scratch every year. So it also kind of builds a little bit of familiarity for the coaching staff to kind of plug and play similar talents in these roles, and you described similarities down the line, even to a Sion James last year who's exploded as a cutter for Charlotte. Who will let's skip over to Charlotte here now, who super a fun league pass team out of the gates. They have a ton of talent. I immediately loved Charlotte's draft haul. I thought if you have some relative star talent in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, and you're looking for well-fitting role players to fit around those guys, off the bat, the draft haul just looked as clean as possible to just kind of fill out a top 6 type of rotation theoretically on paper before you even get into the potential of Kon Knueppel. But even as his theoretical floor, you're just putting in a shooter who and connector right away next to two offensive talents in Miller and LaMelo. Then you got the defensive Kalkbrenner, traditional big man, the cutter, the shooter of Sion James. I really like Liam McNeeley as kind of like an alternate to kind of bringing like a little bit of opposite but similar threats as Sion James, where they can both attack closeouts in different ways, but one with more of the shot, you would think, and one more downhill athleticism. But it just flows well, and you've seen Kon Knueppel at Duke and now in Charlotte. I'm sure we'll hit on his. Let's start with him and some of the rookies here, and we'll kind of go in verse and end it with some of these LaMelo Ball trade rumors. It looks
Sure.
like. So let's start with the real basketball. We got Kon Knueppel is tied for number one rookie of the year odds now, plus 115, plus 115 with Flagg, his former college teammate at Duke, and pretty heavy favorites over the field. VJ Edgecombe, Derek Queen, Cedric Howard, Jeremiah Fears, two Pelicans in there that, and all plus 1,000 or higher. Fears is plus 7,500. You could see the momentum for maybe a Queen gaining steam recently. But do you, in terms of Kon Knueppel, like, does anything seem like it's just catching fire in a bag? Like it's just recency bias, or this is just who he is going forward, and it's only up from here?
I mean, we'll see sort of like where the outer bounds of his upside lie, but yeah, I think this is not, to me. I mean, Kon was number 4 on my big board. I was very happy with the pick. I understood the case to be made if you liked him more than VJ. I sort of like in the end went VJ slightly above him, but Kon has been he's been amazing so far this season. He's averaging 19, 6, and 3 on 49, 44, and 90. So he's been one of the best shooters in the league. Close to, I think 44% on threes on close to 12 3-point attempts per game. I know it's been just 17 games. It's ridiculous stuff.
Just wild.
And he is one of those guys, if you pull up like the NBA's tracking data, he's probably top 7 or 8 in the league in terms of like how much ground he's running per game in terms of like distance. Like he is used in motion, in movement, and a lot of like designed actions, but he's just like constantly on the fly, and he's perpetually.
What's really stood out is that right there, the way they're able to use his shooting gravity, like combined with Kalkbrenner's strong screening and LaMelo as well, just constantly like rotating between LaMelo and Kon Knueppel running pick and rolls, or like flaring across the court off a Kalkbrenner screen to get the ball and flowing right into it. Like that mobility and off-ball gravity, just how they're using it, really stands out.
Yeah, I mean, he's shooting 58% on twos, so he has not been just like a catch and shoot 3-point merchant. And he's been getting, honestly, the only game he had where he really struggled was the Orlando game, and it did feel like the Magic's length, athleticism, gave him some difficulties. The Minnesota game, similarly to a lot of like crazy, athletes on the wing. Those are probably the only 2 games this season he was like not pretty good to very good offensively. He had an excellent game against Atlanta Sunday night, and they were throwing Dyson Daniels, NAW at him, switching with the Kongwu, switching with Jalen Johnson, and he was just kept churning and made tough shots. And I mean, the draft class for Charlotte overall, it was clear that like they were going towards like they wanted like high field players with good shooting touch, and that's what they got with Knueppel, with McNeeley, and with James. And it is a big departure. The last time they had a draft with this many picks was probably 2021. That was a very different front office. And that was the first draft after LaMelo, and they went James Bouknight, JT Thor, Kai Jones, who was another first round pick for them, which was sort of like they were trying to get these, especially with Thor and Jones, it was like, can we get these front court athletes to run with LaMelo? And this year it felt they were more like project players. And these were guys, it was like, no, we want good decision makers. We want guys who can shoot. And with Kon, I mean, I just think the talent was pretty special too. But I think their philosophy was good for the draft this year. And that was important for them because the first draft that this front office and new ownership group had in 2024, they reached on Tijan Salon, right? And that has looked to be so far. I mean, he just turned 20 in August, but that's looked to be a suspicious pick, to put it gently. And Knueppel, like I've seen several people that you and I know and respect, whether it was Matt Powers over at SwishTheory, or it was my buddy Chuck from the Chucking Darts podcast, but have described Kon as having a false ceiling as a prospect. And I think because he was maybe a little older for a one and done, and just because he I think fit this like physical profile of like just a catch and shoot guy. I think some people thought like, okay, this guy, he's a good prospect. He makes sense as like a plug and play guy, but like he's maxing out as like a fifth starter, a seventh man, doing like the Corey Kispert thing in Washington,
Yeah,
And
I can speak to that. Last time we spoke on this pod, I was not nearly as high on Knueppel as I ended up by the draft process, and there was a couple reasons for that, but mostly what you're hitting on right now, like to the Charlotte picks, I did view him closer to the tier of a Liam McNeeley, or I guess I ended up pretty high on Sion actually, or James as well, but. In terms of Knueppel, yes, I thought he was more of kind of a six-man. I didn't really buy the athleticism. I like the off-ball three-point shooting and the ability to attack closeouts, but it wasn't really until I got to see him later in the season, especially that ACC tournament where Flagg was hurt and Knueppel got to take over the on-ball reps and just be the one-man offense. Like, suddenly he goes from, like, kind of like maxing out as a six-man to, like, he's not James Harden, but he's looking like a complete scoring creator, like a guy that can just hit hook passes, swing passes, hit the pick and roll. And what stands out is like the passing touch. There was like 2 or 3 plays where just he would save a ball and it would be perfectly on the dime to his receiver on the like en route or like right in their hands for the shooting pocket. Just really masterful control of the ball. And really one other thing that sold me was finding somebody else made it. I don't credit to whoever did, but what was it? It was his 2 steps in the paint kind of mix. Somebody really highlighted that, and that was really impressive. Just his ability to constantly get 2 feet in the paint, to be able to really slow down the game, decelerate. His body control and his timing and just kind of his feel for the game, as you hit on, are special skills that when you combine with that shooting touch and his ability to just constantly relocate, be an off-ball threat, be an on-ball pull-up three-point threat. He can, if he draws 2, he's hitting any pass in the books. Like that, he's a complete offensive creator guard who can scale down to all of the things that we thought of him as, but isn't limited to that at all.
No, he's super malleable. He's super scalable. The shooting and the off-ball movement, his work as a screener, his competitiveness, is just like, all of that makes him a guy that he can fit a bunch of different roles. And on some nights, especially, when LaMelo was out for a couple of weeks, Brandon Miller was out. I mean, he was like clearly their best offensive player, and like was powering the offense. And he's not a guy that you just line up and he's going to run 50 pick and rolls. I don't think that's ever going to be his usage. It's always going to be a mix of these things. But they've given him more and more on-ball reps throughout the season. The first week of the year, it really was just like Kon in the corner, catch and goes, try to get offensive rebounds, crash, like just do. And he was great at it. Like he can do that kind of stuff because he's great feel. He's got a nose for the ball. He can really shoot. And then you could see before LaMelo got hurt that the like Charlotte's offense this season, they've totally redone it. They've changed their spacing template. Instead of playing a lot of 5 out like they did last season, they're mostly keeping their 5 in the dunker spot. So they lead the league in the number of ball screens that have been set by guards. They lead the league in the number of pick and roll possessions where there's a center in the dunker spot. And so they've just totally revamped, and we don't have the time to go into all of it. It's a whole other podcast, but they've totally redone it. And they have just opened up double gaps on both sides of the court. And then they're playing out of these guard screening actions. And LaMelo and Kon have developed a really nice rapport with LaMelo operating up top. Kon's going to come up. He can either set a ghost screen and pop out for a 3. He can set that little like hot stove underneath screen, and he can slip and get to the short roll, or he can hold the screen and let LaMelo try to like get downhill and turn the corner. And that's been like their best play, like their best like high usage go-to play this season. Kon's an excellent screener. He pulls in a lot of gravity because of his shooting. But if you put him in the pocket on the short roll, he makes great decisions with the ball. You know, he can kick it out to the corner. He can look for the 5 in the dunker spot. He can score in the in-between zone and on that little like mid-range runner. He's got great touch there. So I don't think like long-term, you know, what is Kon's ceiling? What is his full potential? There were a lot of like comparisons thrown out to him, you know, leading into the draft. Desmond Bane, that was one that I liked actually quite a bit.
And by the way, he already has way more games with more threes this season than Desmond Bane. Like it's not even close. Like I was just looking, 9 games with 4 threes, 6 games with 5 threes, 9 20-point games in his first 17 games for just scoring.
So he may have fully have another, and obviously he's coming into the league at a much younger age than Bane was his rookie season a couple of years ago with
and that leads me to his defense
Memphis.
Is what I'm most curious about. Like, do you think, you know, Kon Knueppel's answer the question offensively? Do you think he is holding his own defensively as a starter in this league? Yeah,
I do, because for the most part, and I think I think like a lot of rookies, he has his moments where he can be in the, you know, space out and get back cut. I think that happens occasionally. And obviously like he's not the quickest laterally. So some NBA guards can line him up on the perimeter and just zip by him, but like they do that with most people on planet Earth. I did think when they played Toronto a couple of nights ago, like the Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram combination sort of like did have some success sort of like, you know, isolating and posting up against him. But I thought some of that was also those guys making tough shots. He's 6'5", so he's you know, not crazy tall. His wingspan is probably like +2, whatever. But he is strong. I mean, he is 220 pounds. And unless you have guys, you know, sort of like all-star caliber, like big forward creator types, you know, your Ingrams, your Siakams, your those types of guys, your Barneses, like those are the guys that, they're probably going to have some success if they look to sort of like bully him. But he's not the kind of guy that I don't think your offense is going to have a ton of success if the game plan is to like isolate on Kon every time and try to like either drive around him or like bully him in the mid post. I think he does a pretty good job like holding his ground in those spots. And as a team defender, he's generally in the right place. He's got good hands too. He'll get blocks and steals that surprise you at times. I think his feel for the game does translate onto that side of the floor. So like, I don't think he's ever going to be like a star defender by any means. And I think you could really help him as a defender by just having like better defensive infrastructure elsewhere throughout the roster. But I think I feel pretty confident that he's going to grade out as like a neutral to slightly positive defender throughout his career. And the offense that he's giving you is obviously really, really impactful already. It's scalable. It fits around a bunch of different guys. He's great as a screener. So I could not mean again, he was the guy I wanted. I wanted him over Bailey. I wanted him over Trey Johnson, who were 2 prospects that I liked quite a bit, but it is a huge relief that there was, for someone who, you know, follows Charlotte, for there to be this massive, incredible 2025 draft class, and for the Hornets to sort of have the first sort of like swing pick of the draft, you know, potentially. Like, you know, hey, you could make a case for Bailey or for Trey Johnson here or whatever. But for them to like nail that pick and then also like have the depth pieces later on, you know, McNeeley's he got sick and he's had sort of a tough season. I think his lack of athleticism has sort of like showed up in unfortunate ways for him. But guys like James and Kalkbrenner are, you know, Sion's offense is a little up and down, but his decision-making, his defense, his athleticism have been good. Kalkbrenner, you know, he's a little limited in terms of scope and what he can do, but with his size and rim protection, those guys have been starting multiple games for, you know, I know the Hornets aren't good, but for those guys to be able to step in and handle those roles professionally, I think has been pretty impressive. So overall, terrific draft haul for Charlotte. And that is encouraging because they've got some important drafts, the next couple of years on the horizon. And my guess is that a lot of these same decision makers are going to be in those same places again. They're going to have a big draft in 26. They've got picks coming in from Miami, coming in from Dallas, starting 27, 28. And who knows if they end up moving someone like LaMelo Ball, maybe they're going to have more future picks coming in too. So I think it was encouraging to show that this group could really hit on some picks. And Brandon Miller played in the game, did not play in the Atlanta game because it was a second night of a back-to-back, but Miller returned Saturday against the Clippers. He was, I would say, pretty good, not great, but pretty good. And I'm really curious to sort of see more of Knueppel and Miller on the court together because I think those two guys, they're both super malleable, very good shooters, can play on and off the ball. I think that's a really fun duo, and I'd like to see more of it going forward.
Yeah, especially with LaMelo in there too. I mean, just three guys that constantly can use that off-ball shooting gravity. And to your point, like going all in on that dribble, pass, and shoot role, like team first type of a player that can just fill a role in the league right away and not going to have too many holes, like just be able to make good decisions with and without the ball. And I think it's where the league has trended in some ways to just maybe target good basketball players overall a little more than high potential. And that seems to be where it's headed with some of the picks. Not entirely. It's always a mix of both. It depends what your team needs and what you're invested in, but it sure seems like the guys that are ready to play in the league right away have been good at basketball for a few years already and show it one way or another. We were talking with your BuzzBeat co-host, Matt Alkiza, on this pod right after the Summer League Hornets were taking the league by storm and the draft class. So if you want to hear some more instant reaction thoughts on the draft class, check that out as well. But literally, maybe not my favorite, but maybe not the best overall class, but definitely one of my favorite draft classes of any team, and just great value across the board. Kalkbrenner falling to them in the second round, was clearly a late first round type of a talent. To get him with a second round pick is great value. Some guys had him as high as 20. And like we said, he's not the most versatile project guy in the world. It's quite the opposite. What you're getting: a drop defender, a great shot blocker who doesn't foul and can potentially be a pick and pop guy down the road. And there's always a role for a big man that can do those things in this league, as long as they're protecting the rim and running pick and roll and pick and pops. That's a kind of a guy you want in that situation. And I really do like how they're the young rookies kind of attack closeouts all different ways around their stars. I feel like it's just a good complementary fit, kind of similar to Orlando adding Jace Richardson and Noah Penda, just guys that can just throw in to a rotation and attack closeouts in different ways. We didn't mention much of Colin Sexton. He's been playing pretty well as another electric scorer for you guys. Want to give him a shout, but we got to hit on some of these LaMelo rumors before we bounce.
One last thing I wanted to mention about Kalkbrenner. Obviously, his finishing around the basket has been good, but the combination of he and Moussa Diabate, Charlotte has very little financially invested in the center position. I mean, it's a second round pick, and Diabate is a guy that they signed off the street basically last offseason on a two-way and converted him to a full-time deal. The Hornets currently, right now, they are.
You looking up the rebounding? Because I got
number,
it right here.
They're number 3 in the NBA in offensive rebound rate.
There it is. That's crazy.
And they are number 1 in the NBA in defensive rebound rate.
There it is.
So that's a huge. Those two guys are just playing their assignments to a T. Diabate a little bit more scheme versatility, guarding the pick and roll. He can switch a little bit more, but and Charles Lee likes to cross match and do different stuff with the 5. But Kalkbrenner's primarily been guarding opposing 5s and playing in the drop, and he's just done his job at a really, really strong level so far this season. So, 2 23-year-olds with Diabate and Kalkbrenner, and they've both given Charlotte a nice lift at that position, I think.
Yeah, that's incredible value. Number 1 as a team in free throw rate defensively as well. So they're continuing to, a pretty young team, not fouling on defense is always good to see, good sign to see. But Man, these LaMelo Ball rumors. Where did they start? Like, is it on LaMelo's side? Is it the Hornets side? I'm not sure if you've been keeping up with kind of where the leaks are coming from, but we're always here for a fake trade. So I'm prepared to throw some names at you.
Let's do it
if you're ready. All right. We got to start. Got to start with the other names that have been popping out. We got Ja Morant and Trae Young. A little report from Mark Stein that these three names might not be available now, but maybe one day. Do either of those names excite you? Let's play buzz or no buzz. You know,
okay.
Like you bring in a little buzz here with if you bring Ja Morant or Trae Young into town in a swap for LaMelo.
I'll say this. No, I mean, I like Trae Young a lot. Ja Morant, absolutely no. Is a
so no buzz. To be clear, no buzz.
A total stay away from me. And I think a guy who it's really, I mean, I'm just saying what I think a lot of people would too. I mean, the injuries, it's unfortunate, but the decision making, his attitude doesn't really seem to be great either. I don't think like I'm not in the boat where I think Morant is just like done at this point. Like maybe I would just rather like if he's going to figure it out, I'll let someone else have that win. To me, he's not. I don't see the case for it unless like Memphis was like attaching a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? And they're not going to be. They probably want to argue the other side of the coin. I'd be intrigued by Trae. I just don't. He's a guy that you're going to have to make a long-term contractual decision on soon, and so I would have a little bit of buzz for that because I do like Trae. I do sort of like where he can set your floor offensively with his pick and roll aptitude and passing skills and all that sort of stuff. I don't think it makes it. I would probably just rather have. I mean, LaMelo's younger. He's got more size.
And I think LaMelo's the more active defender of those three, where it's not as big of a negative hole on that end.
So Trae, I mean, all-star, when he's healthy, annually, he's all-star caliber. So like, I'm in on him. I don't mean this as a knock. It just, I think for Charlotte, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. I think if the Hornets are trading LaMelo, they're going to be looking for more of sort of like a mini reset. And which, I mean, they're already in the middle. I mean, this is like we're in the ninth dimension of resets with Charlotte. So... but that would be my thought, is that they're looking more towards like young players and picks. I could be wrong about that. And if that's
might the change some of the next ideas here. We got the Mavs, Nico Harrison's out. The Mavs might be blowing it up. Could Charlotte look to put together an Anthony Davis package, or maybe swipe Kyrie in some sort of 1-for-1 deal? But maybe on Charlotte's side, I imagine package a little bit more together for an AD. But if he's available and you pair a player like that with Kon Knueppel, I mean, a little older, but is that a little too old for your window?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just can't wait to trade for a 32-year-old guard coming off an ACL injury and for an out-of-shape big guy who is stuck in between positions and is always injured too. No, I mean, like, Kyrie and AD are like unbelievable players, Hall of Fame talents,
right.
But I don't think either make any sense for Charlotte, mostly just because what are they doing for you in terms of like, are they raising the overall like ability to win like just enough so that you're guaranteeing yourself worse picks going into the future? They're not making you a playoff team. I think like Anthony Davis in his prime or late prime is the kind of player that if he was able to play a full season could prop up their defense. And obviously like, but I just think that door is kind of closed on him. And I'm hopeful that Kyrie has like more juice in the tank either later this season or the next, because I'd like for him to be able to like help Cooper slide into a more sustainable role offensively. But I just don't see it.
These a little past the window here, so we're on 3 no buzzes. We have 1/2 a buzz so far for Trae.
Trae Young, that's it.
But here's I think this is my favorite name of all the ones I saw. Larry Markkanen, bring in a little stretch 4 into the front court and get the pick and pop game going off of Kon Knueppel, Markkanen. You got Miller out there. I mean, the offense sounds pretty special there.
That I would be a little more interested in. I think. Markkanen's averaging 30 a game this season, and
just unreal.
A 7-foot shooter who, I mean, it would almost honestly be a little sad to see him leave Will Hardy's offense, because those are two of my favorite. It's one of my favorite pairings in the league. But
That's
I
the
mean,
real question is
he's
if he's that effective elsewhere.
he's
But
another guy that like Miller and Knueppel is just like super malleable. Maybe he wouldn't be the same sort of like high volume shooter, but quick trigger shooter, 7 feet with that touch. You can put him in a lot of different setups. And he's going to be really good. Whether he's like this good elsewhere is, maybe that remains to be seen. But
yeah, I mean, you would think he keeps the efficiency.
He's not what Charlotte needs, but he's so good and he's so copy and paste, that he fits into so many different areas. So I would say like a little buzzed for that, but
A little buzz.
I'm not too. That's not the type of deal I would be like hunting for if I was Charlotte, unless you could also then use that to flip Markkanen for more stuff at some point in time.
Okay,
and
so
maybe that's another thing to die.
You're thinking retool the roster, get some prospects, some picks. It might be more first oriented than player.
If they're going to trade LaMelo, they need another guy.
All right, so
they need another.
I got a few more
top 3 pick.
Yeah, that's big time. So I don't have a clear team with picks. I guess I haven't necessarily thought of, but we'll keep going. If you have any teams with picks,
I've got a couple to queue up. So I think Sacramento. There's a couple of like interesting possibilities.
That's the next team. Next team. So Sabonis, Levine, DeRozan, Monk. Buzz.
So my depends on how many picks are offered, to be clear. But so my thoughts on Sabonis LaMelo trade, it's like it would be an interesting challenge trade, right? Like those two straight up. I'd be curious to see. I think both sides would try to haggle for who's the one that's going to like get assets. Are there going to be picks involved? My guess would be Charlotte. There's no way they make this deal unless like they're getting at least like one pick in return. Maybe Charlotte gets the 2027 first from Sacramento with Sabonis and some protections on the pick. I gotta say, first off, that deal would really bum me out. Like seeing LaMelo leave one bad situation and land in what is probably the worst situation in the NBA would be pretty brutal. But you can see some cases for it. Like LaMelo would give them a ball handler. He would help organize things around DeRozan and Levine and Murray, and Sabonis would be such a massive injection of talent at the center position. He'd be the best center that Charlotte's had in a decade, probably since Big Al Jefferson. But I think Charlotte has really, we were sort of just talking about this a minute ago, but like, I think they've really gotten good value from Kalkbrenner and Diabate at the 5 spot this year. And they like what those guys bring because they're screeners, they're rollers, they're rim protectors, both of those guys. And they're like really good value, very like team friendly value, offering you this like discrete set of skills at the center position. And Sabonis would be a big departure from that. Like he's older, he's a veteran, he's on a max contract or close to a max contract, and he doesn't protect the rim. He's not a drop defensive center. He's not a guy that just wants to screen and roll. Now, if you have a guy like that, I think his front court passing, the handoff game would really be good with Knueppel and Miller. Like it would really sure. Like help those kinds of like movement guys get going. So I see some potential there. I think there's a case too that if you add Sabonis, like, yeah, maybe you're raising the bar a little bit, but you're still almost certainly a lottery team, So it's like, I don't know if that would be desirable or undesirable to the front office. So I don't know. I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm buzzed by that, but I'm not like, if you offer, like, I got to have a meeting on it, And then the other one I thought was like Monk and DeRozan as a package plus a pick or two.
Yeah.
The money works.
Thinking Monk or Levine in that system, some off-ball movement shooters as well.
And Monk could give them some ball handling if they traded LaMelo, and DeRozan could too. If Charlotte's doing a kind of 2-for-1 deal like that, they need to, they would either need to throw one more player in the trade, or they're going to end up releasing someone. So, because just given the roster crunch, but like Charlotte, And they'd be taking on a fair number of years in terms of like money with Monk and DeRozan. Plus, they'd be giving up the best player in the deal. So if that was the transaction, I would be asking for multiple picks if I was Charlotte, because it's a fair amount of like long-term money to take on with those two guys who are kind of weird fits and like kind of get in the way of Miller and Knueppel too. So like, but maybe you could also reroute those guys, right? You know what I mean? Like maybe you could try to flip one of them else, flip DeRozan or flip Monk somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
if you think you can get a first for them at the deadline, maybe they have that value. And also, like, that's one where the picks themselves are the blue chip asset,
100%,
quote unquote, in the deal. Where that I guess is the last question. Well, there are some more other scenarios, but in terms of just his trade value, things change fast, and sometimes a guy is worth 4 picks, and every swap that you have, sometimes it's not. I don't think LaMelo is on that Anthony Davis, James Harden level trade package of everything, but I do think Bane just got traded for 4 firsts. You could easily make the case LaMelo is worth 3 to 4 first round picks.
The only thing that worries me about his trade value are the injuries. Just like he hasn't played a full season since 22, which was the last time he made an All-Star roster. It was his second year in the league. And if you had told me then that, look, what's LaMelo's trade value, I would have said it's everything. It's absolutely everything. Now it's like I think I'd be a little bit more intrigued by like 2 first round picks or 1 first round pick and a good young player that's on like a rookie contract type deal. I think you could sweeten me a little bit more with that, even if I feel like it's selling a little short on LaMelo just from a talent and age perspective. But so another idea I have, I've got 2 or 3 more to shoot at you. I've got one with Toronto.
Perfect. All right. There you go. I didn't have one on Toronto. So
okay.
Let's hear that. I like that fit for their defensive versatility. They could use a little playmaking connected like that.
So this would be Emmanuel Quickley in one of the young wings, either like Grady Dick or Jacoby Walter, and some picks. So maybe like a 26, which is probably not going to be a great first round pick if Toronto keeps it up this year. 26 and a 28. I don't think Charlotte is going to be able to get CMB, Colin Murray Boyles, in this deal.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
I would ask for him. I mean, I would say he's my future power forward, and I'd be trying to. I mean, I would have tried to. I would try to get. I would have moved off Miles Bridges years ago, but I would definitely move off of him if I had CMB in the door. Yeah, so maybe I don't know.
That's like having a top 10 pick this year. Yeah. If you got CMB value.
So one of the other counter proposals, one was Quickly plus Walter or Grady Dick in multiple picks, or was like Quickly, CMB, and maybe 1 protected future first round pick.
I like that.
Quickly has played great this year, though. Or maybe not great. He's been very good this year. And he started 17 of 17 games, and he shot it well. So like maybe it would be a big roll of the dice for Toronto that has like a good flow, has a good system in place, has guys like Ingram and Barnes that like want and Barrett that like want and are going to have the ball. But I think there's maybe something there too, especially with Toronto's transition game. Like LaMelo would be a guy who could potentially fit into that quite nicely. And then
you could make the case you're selling high on Quickly, buying low on LaMelo, given where they generally are. Like a year ago when we recorded, I think if we had brought this up, LaMelo's averaging 30 points a game with like 10 threes a game. Like it's probably an extra first compared to this second. So it's
for sure
that long-term values that is a good offer there.
And then the 2 other ones that I'm like a little less crazy about, but I see some of the intrigue. One, this was mentioned to me on Twitter by Chuck from the Chucking Darts podcast. Someone else proposed this, but it was DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy the third for LaMelo and Colin Sexton. Hornets bring Trey Murphy back to North Carolina. He's from Durham.
He's a big get.
Good contract.
But I would say my favorite individual player we've mentioned other than CMB, I think, and Mark Cannon. I guess obviously all the stars, but like in terms of value for their salary and prospect.
Obviously Trey Murphy he's an awesome player. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a weird fit with Khan and Miller. There's some overlap. I think you would just play them together a ton and just be happy having that much shooting on the court at the same time. And I would maybe say, like, maybe if you're eating Murray's deal and you're also shipping out the best player in the deal from Charlotte's perspective, maybe you expect New Orleans to attach a pick, to it as well. So you're getting, because you're shipping off, you're moving off LaMelo and you're taking on Murray's money. Maybe you can haggle your way into another first round pick, in which a pick from New Orleans or a pick from Sacramento, like we mentioned earlier, those are really like good assets to
the most valuable thing you can do is call New Orleans at the moment.
Yeah. And then
and ask for that extra pick. Just ask.
The last one I had, this was sent to me by one of my co-hosts at the BuzzBeat podcast, Richie Randall, which was I don't see this happening either way, but it's an interesting proposal, which is like a Pistons Hornets trade around LaMelo.
They're on my final three here of three good teams that I think might look
at. Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey in the 26th first round pick, which that's not going to be a very good pick, obviously, because Detroit's record is excellent. So like those two players in a first round pick in this year's draft for LaMelo. I definitely would have to consider it. I mean, I like Ivy. The only thing is, how does Ivy fit? You've got to make a decision on him. I mean, he's a restricted free agent in the summer. So you'd have to sort of make a decision on him one way or the other. So, and that pick could be the 28th pick in the draft, so it's it's going to be a very late first round pick. So I think that's a relatively fair trade. To me, it feels like I think I would say no if I was Charlotte, but I would use it as a base and try to get more out of it from Detroit.
Yeah,
if
I have Holland and Sasser as two names that you try to maybe finagle to get as well, because they're not moving Cade or Sarr or Duren. Yeah. And Ivy I would have in there, but he's just hurt so often that maybe you could get him. There might be a little overlap with Sexton's skill set wise at the moment as these electric guards. But he's
an unrestricted free agent this summer anyway.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't be surprised if Sexton is. They try to move him if they try to move him at the deadline, or if he just walks in free agency this summer.
So you could see Ivy kind of replacing heir apparent to that role as well, and fitting well, and maybe you go after a Ron Holland instead of the picks, because of how late the picks are. Sasser's an interesting 3-point shooter. They don't seem to use as much anymore. Maybe you could pry him out of there. Definitely could see some possibilities there.
I like some of these a little bit.
Yeah. I got two last teams for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Somewhat contenders in the West. Let's get LaMelo on a fun team here. The Warriors and the Lakers. What if the Warriors just bundle together? Now, I don't know if there's many picks left for either of these teams, but they have Kuminga, who doesn't seem too happy there. They got Moses Moody. Maybe Buddy Hield or a Melton or something fits salary-wise. Kuminga's a big wing prospect. Moody's a two-way type of guy. Is that enticing at all? Is there a little buzz there for Charlotte wise? And Lakers wise, I don't think they would move Austin Reeves at this point, but I think that's a little too much. But maybe it's still LaMelo Ball, and you already have Luka and LeBron. You throw a Ball brother on there, it's on the table. But if not Reeves, they still have a Dalton Connect, who Charlotte tried to trade for just last summer with Mark Williams. You got Gabe Vincent, Vanderbilt, some solid defenders, and guys. Rui Hachimura can go get a bucket here and there. They might have some picks. So just two playoff teams, good offenses, star power. Maybe they're trying to build a super team and they have just enough prospects to make a deal work. Is there anything there, or would both teams need to just load it up with picks?
They would have to load it up with picks. I don't think either side has the sort of I think Golden State has enough stuff to probably get in conversations. My guess is the Lakers don't have, even after the Luka heist, that they don't have a ton of stuff that they can move around. I don't think they would want to trade Reeves because the fit with Luka is really good, and he's just sort of more dependable at this point than LaMelo. I mean, LaMelo there's an alternative reality where LaMelo's the number 2 pick in 2020.
I know. And this is the full circle moment where they just
changes everything for that. I mean, he just becomes the bridge. He becomes the two timelines for them, actually.
They could have had Franz, too. They could have had LaMelo Ball and Franz Wagner next to Steph, Clay, and Draymond for insane.
I mean,
10 years.
LaMelo would
hindsight, but still.
LaMelo would be amazing in their system. I think he's think he's been boxed in to play a lot of like spread pick and roll in Charlotte, like he would in most places.
That's a great point. That
But
that relocating gravity handoff system. I mean,
actually
off Draymond.
I think he would have been like really, and I think he and Steph could have fit offensively. Those two guys next to each other is like incredible.
He could have like surpassed Clay naturally for them, like in that Windows type of that style. But I think you really have to love Kuminga and or Moody.
I don't
to
love
make
Kuminga.
That work. Yeah.
I have liked Moody for a while now, but probably not enough to like swing this kind of. Moody's a guy that I'd be happy to like take a flyer on. I think he's like a nice rotation wing or whatever. But Kuminga just doesn't do it for me, man. I mean,
and there are some other names like the Warriors have hit on like Will Richard, Quentin Post. Not that you guys need a big man, but like just some other young names that they do have just float. Mm-hmm. They're a little deeper than meets the eye. So that was a team that just kind of popped out. Like that would be obviously the most fun scenario for LaMelo's side, but I don't necessarily know about Charlotte's side.
I'd also be curious to know like how the money would work on all of that too, just because Golden State would like to have like Curry, LaMelo,
it might not work.
Green and Butler on the book is like in the new CBAs. I'm not even sure if that's fully.
Thankfully,
possible,
we have podcast trade rules on, so this is exactly. NBA 2K settings.
Good point.
We don't have to follow any salary cap, but no, that is
fair enough.
That is probably keeping the deal from happening, along with how anyone values Kuminga. Because on the other, like if you're trying to sell it, he is kind of this big wing four, that defensive type of guy. But I'm not very high on him either. I don't think it would be enough for me. But the way he's talked about around the league, maybe one. All it takes is one team. Was there one deal here that we've said that gives you the most buzz? Like you're coming away buzzing after hearing this fake trade?
Not really. I mean, because like I don't like.
Buzz.
I wanted this to. I mean, I want LaMelo to work in Charlotte. So it's like none of these are going to be unless
a different star for star trade that might pop up that we didn't get to that would excite you.
I mean, I suppose there could be, but
you want to see your guy do it. You want to that's your guy. You want to see him succeed.
Every game he's played in the NBA, and so if in fact he is going to be on the move, whether it's this season or the summer or whatever, like it bums me out. And now if you got like a monster offer and there were 4 picks and swap, like then it's like, well, that's just too much to say no to. I understand the sort of like the sort of like momentum for I get why things are trending in this direction. I understand why maybe some people in that building are put off or annoyed or frustrated, and I'm sure LaMelo's frustrated. Like it's unfortunate the situation has not worked out after such like a exciting start to it his first 2 seasons. But that was a long time ago now. In the reality of things. And so I think if Charlotte, like the deals, I think the ones that I like the most are like the Toronto, where it's like quickly plus either like, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter and 2 picks, or it's IQ plus CMB in a pick, whether Toronto would even do something like that. I think something like that would excite me. The New Orleans, like Trey Murphy, plus like a pick or 2, if that was doable, that would also intrigue me. I mean, I think New Orleans making trades now, like this is they're 2-15 or whatever. Like it would be like insane, but like I guess I could kind of see it. So I think those are the ones that like those are the kind of deals I'm interested in and the kind of deals that like I'm looking for. The ones where it's like sort of like another like star veteran that's older than LaMelo and on a very expensive contract, that just doesn't fit for me. I can't lie. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to speed up the timeline for this type of a team that just went all in on like young ball handlers and young like youth across the board. Like to me, they made a clear shift in team philosophy with this class. They know who they are. They know the way they want to play. And that's always a key, to know what you're looking for, to kind of find guys that do those things rather than just try to take the best player theoretically available and fit them into a box that may or may not work with what you're actually doing on the court. I did not successfully get the fake trade to work for Kuminga, so it might not it might not be possible, but we'll play around with the salary a little bit. There's who knows, but there are a ton of possibilities. Obviously, we'd love to see LaMelo finish it out in Charlotte. Definitely interested to see where LaMelo ends up. I'm with you as a small market fan of a team, or a small market team fan. We got to stick together, keep our stars in the cities that draft them. Don't let the Lakers just take everybody. Where it's been enough of that. So stay in Charlotte, LaMelo. Let's see it play out. Maybe things work out where you end up with a top pick and you throw Cam Boozer on this team. I mean, come on. That's the one that I'm hoping for, is just like, let's see a downhill force like Boozer hitting all these spread shooters and connectors and just have incredible ball movement and 3-point shooting together. Come on.
LaMelo, Kon, Miller, Boozer, Kalkbrenner. This next year's starting five.
That's it. Start counting it down.
Miles Bridges playing on the moon. That would be my ideal scenario. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes from here. And again, I mean, small market teams, they never get a fair shake. So
there it is.
I'm always perpetually pulling for all of them, including Charlotte.
Exactly. That's what we like to hear. We'll have to. We've been going a little long. We'll have to do this again and talk a little more Hornets ball. Maybe hit on some of the other teams that you're thinking about or that you're covering up close. I know you're all up in the scene in Carolina hoops with NC State and Darion Williams. Want to give him a shout because I know you've been highlighting him as well. Was there anything you wanted to plug with SwishTheory or with any of your work here before we go?
Yeah, well, this season I'll be contributing at SwishTheory. I've published 2 pieces already last couple of months. One was on Henry Vezar, the center transfer from Arizona to UNC, who's having a really nice season playing next to Caleb Wilson. And then I also published a piece on Tyrone Riley, the wing sophomore lefty from San Francisco, who's having a nice sophomore year with the Dons. But I'll be contributing there. I'll be contributing at Basket Under Review, mostly covering the ACC. And then my Substack page, briangeisinger.substack.com, titled Split the Action. That's where I'm going to be publishing most of my stuff. It'll be film, stats analysis, a lot of Duke, a lot of NC State, a lot of ACC, draft coverage, off-season coverage too. It's for free. There's no ads. There's video, there's stats. There's all kinds of good stuff there. Please subscribe if you're interested. And then my Twitter page at bgeis_bird is a good place to sort of like stay in the loop. I'm tweeting out videos, stats, links, all that kind of good stuff there too. But thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I know you've been enjoying the color analyst type of role as well, as we talked about last time. So it's cool to see you get more and more opportunity and see your work highlighted. You're doing great work covering, especially that area of basketball. I think you can really learn a lot from local coverage that does it well, and you're not going to find it better than Brian and his team at the Buzzbeat Pod. And welcome to the SwishTheory team as well. If you're looking for buzz, no else you're going to find it than the Buzzbeat Pod. You got to check it out.
Right. And of course, subscribe and follow us too on every podcast listening app. But thanks for having me on, man. It was a good time.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining, man. Learning Basketball is a SwishTheory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.